All right, so you're here because you're curious about Dianabol and Clenbuterol. These two substances, they get a ton of buzz in the fitness world, right? And
Yeah.
it can be tricky to separate fact from fiction, but we are going to unpack a recent article that compares and contrasts the two. And trust me, it gets pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about muscle gains, fat loss, and of course, those potential side effects everyone whispers about. If you find yourself fascinated by topics like this, you can always check out publichealthlaw.net for more deep dives into the world of public health and law. But let's get right into it.
Yeah. So what's fascinating about Dianabol and Clenbuterol is how different they actually are. Dianabol, or D-bol as it's often called, is a classic anabolic steroid. You know, your muscle-building powerhouse.
Okay?
But Clenbuterol, on the other hand, isn't a steroid at all. It was originally developed to treat asthma. But athletes caught wind of its fat-burning potential, and things kind of took off from there.
Interesting. So we're talking two different paths to potentially achieving two different goals. D-bol for packing on size and clenbuterol for leaning out. But I have a feeling there's a lot more to it than that, right?
Absolutely. The article highlights the fact that Dianabol can lead to some pretty rapid muscle growth and strength gains. It also mentions faster recovery times, which is a big draw for anyone pushing their body hard. But like any powerful tool, it comes with a user manual. And some of the warnings are pretty serious.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that. There are always whispers about side effects with these kinds of substances. What does the article say about the downsides of Dianabol?
Well, one of the most noticeable side effects is water retention. So you might be building muscle, but you could also end up looking puffy or bloated. This is because Dianabol can affect how your body regulates fluids. And while some water retention is expected with muscle growth, Dianabol can tip the scales a bit too far for some people.
So it's not just about getting ripped, it's also about how your body actually changes and responds to the substance. That makes sense. But I'm guessing water retention isn't the only thing to be concerned about, right?
Right. The article also goes into the potential for liver damage. Dianabol is processed by the liver, and long-term use, or even short-term use with high doses, can put a lot of stress on this vital organ.
Oh, wow.
And of course, there's the impact on blood pressure. Dianabol can elevate blood pressure, increasing the risk of cardiovascular problems down the line.
That's a pretty serious list of potential issues.
Yeah.
And I know we're just scratching the surface here. Anything else we should be aware of before we move on to clenbuterol?
Yeah, there's one more side effect mentioned that's worth discussing. And it's a bit of a sensitive topic, gynecomastia.
Okay, and for those of us who don't speak medical jargon, what exactly are we talking about here?
Gynecomastia is essentially the development of breast tissue in men. It's a hormonal side effect that can occur with certain substances, including Dianabol. It can be a very uncomfortable and distressing side effect, both physically and emotionally.
Wow, so it's not just physical risks, but potential emotional ones as well. It sounds like you really have to weigh the pros and cons carefully with Dianabol. I'm almost afraid to ask, but what kinds of side effects does clenbuterol come with?
Well, remember, clenbuterol was originally intended to treat respiratory conditions like asthma. It works by relaxing the muscles in the airways, making it easier to breathe. But this same mechanism can have some pretty intense effects on the cardiovascular system when it's used for fat burning.
Okay, so it's like we're hijacking a medication and using it for something it wasn't really designed for. I can see how that could lead to some unexpected outcomes.
Exactly. One of the most common side effects of clenbuterol is a rapid heartbeat. Imagine feeling like your heart is constantly racing, even when you're just sitting still. It can be pretty unsettling. And for people with pre-existing heart conditions, it could even be dangerous.
So it's not just a matter of feeling jittery, it's actually putting extra stress on your heart. That's a pretty big red flag right there.
It is. And the article mentions some other side effects that you might not expect. Muscle cramps are a common complaint, which can be frustrating if you're trying to work out.
Hmm.
And then there are the psychological effects like anxiety and insomnia. Some people experience a constant feeling of restlessness and find it difficult to relax or sleep.
Wow. It's like this substance is a double-edged sword. You might be leaning out and shedding fat, but you could also end up with a racing heart muscle cramps and a case of the jitters that keeps you up all night.
It's a trade-off, and it's not one to be taken lightly. The article really emphasizes the importance of understanding these risks before you even consider experimenting with clenbuterol.
It sounds like we're getting into a bit of a choose-your-fighter situation here.
Mm.
Dianabol for muscle gains with the risk of water retention, liver issues, and hormonal imbalances. Clenbuterol for fat loss with the potential for heart problems, muscle cramps, and anxiety. Is there any scenario where someone might want to use both of these substances? Or is that just a recipe for disaster?
The article specifically warns against combining Dianabol and clenbuterol. The risks associated with each substance are significant enough on their own, But when you combine them, you're essentially multiplying those risks. It's like playing Russian roulette with your health.
That's a pretty stark image, but I think it gets the point across. So if someone is determined to go down this route despite the risks, the article seems to be saying it's better to pick one substance and focus on one goal at a time, either bulking up or leaning out, but not both simultaneously.
Exactly. And even then, it's crucial to start with a very low dose, monitor your body's response carefully, and be prepared to stop immediately if you experience any adverse effects. It's also worth mentioning that the article highlights the legal status of these substances. Dianabol is a Schedule III controlled substance in the United States, meaning it's illegal to possess or use without a valid prescription. Clenbuterol, while not a controlled substance, is not approved for human use by the FDA.
So we're not just talking about potential health risks, we're also talking about legal ramifications. It seems like the message here is to proceed with extreme caution, if at all.
Absolutely. The article makes a strong case for exploring safer and more sustainable alternatives for achieving fitness goals. There are plenty of ways to build muscle and lose fat without resorting to substances that carry such significant risks.
Okay, so we've covered the potential benefits and the very real risks of both Dianabol and Clenbuterol. We've talked about the dangers of combining these substances, the legal issues involved, and the importance of considering safer alternatives. What are some of the key takeaways you think our listeners should walk away with?
I think the most important takeaway is that there's no such thing as a free lunch, especially when it comes to performance enhancement. These substances can deliver results, but those results come at a potential cost. And that cost could be your health, your well-being, or even your freedom.
Yeah, that's a powerful statement, and I think it speaks to the need for informed decision-making. You have to do your research, understand the risks involved, and make a choice that aligns with your values and your long-term goals.
Absolutely. And remember, this article is just one piece of the puzzle. There are many other resources available, including reputable medical professionals who can provide guidance and support.
Yeah. You know, it's fascinating to me how much misinformation is out there about performance enhancement. It's easy to get caught up in the hype and promises of quick results, but it's so important to remember that our bodies aren't machines.
Right. We can't just tweak a few settings and expect everything to run perfectly. There's a delicate balance at play. When we introduce powerful substances like Dianabol and Clenbuterol, we're messing with that balance.
And it seems like the consequences can be pretty unpredictable. We've talked about the potential side effects, but I imagine there's a lot we still don't know about the long-term impacts of these substances.
Absolutely. Research is ongoing and new information is constantly emerging. But one thing is clear, the decision to use these substances shouldn't be made lightly. It requires careful consideration, thorough research, and a willingness to accept the potential risks.
And it sounds like the article is encouraging us to really question our motivations. Why are we so drawn to these quick fixes? What are we hoping to achieve? And are there healthier, more sustainable ways to reach our goals?
Those are excellent questions. And I think they're at the heart of this whole discussion. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of a certain physique or performance level, but it's essential to remember that true health and well-being go far beyond external appearances.
Right, so maybe instead of asking, how much risk am I willing to take? We should be asking, what's truly important to me?
Right.
Is it worth sacrificing my long-term health for short-term gains?
That's a profound question, and it's one that each individual has to answer for themselves. There's no right or wrong answer, but there's certainly a lot to consider.
Well, I think we've done a pretty thorough job of unpacking this complex topic today. We've explored the potential benefits and the very real risks of both Dianabol and Clenbuterol. We talked about the dangers of combining these substances,
Yeah.
the legal ramifications, and the importance of informed decision-making.
Right.
And if you're interested in more content like this, you can visit us over at publichealthlaw.net. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay healthy.